Hi there. I'm Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks. This is Sweet Baby James. Tonight, I'm going to talk about how many of us need more compassion for ourselves. And then I'm going to try to help. So, before I start talking about this topic, let me introduce you to James, who's going to introduce our show.
Yes, welcome to Granny Rocks Our World, otherwise known as
Grow.
Grow. I was thinking of rock. Grow. And we grow together as we support one another in our evolution of consciousness with the help of Granny, who brings her wisdom, her wit, and her uncommon sense, which happens every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. So stay with us. And now, here's Granny.
You forgot to mention that I also bring my frizzy hair. Anyway, tonight is going to be a little different because a lot of our regulars are traveling to Oregon.
To be with us.
Because some of us, and Erica says hello to you both. Hello, Erica. And Amy said hi, Granny and SVJ, and hello, Amy. So, yes, we're having a retreat in person in Oregon this weekend. And yes, I did tell you about it several times. And if you ever want to know about the events that we're doing, go to our Facebook page, and there is
an event section.
And all the events are listed there. Or you can go to my website, bethgreen.org, and then you can go to the events page too. And also my website, it tells you all kinds of things that I'm doing, counseling and so on. But today we're getting ready for a retreat, which is going to be fun. So some of you won't be speaking up now, but I hope you'll be speaking up later. But I hope that whoever is here will speak up tonight, because we're going to need your participation. So last time I tuned in, I tried an experiment, and I asked, what is it that you need me to talk about tonight, right? And I started talking about why it's so painful. Relationships with family can be so painful, and what to do about it. And we had a great show and a lot of sharing. So tonight I did the same thing. I tuned in and I asked the audience, those who are here now alive and those who are going to be joining us, what do you need me to talk about tonight? And I heard loud and clear, compassion. And I don't mean compassion for other people. I mean compassion for ourselves. And so I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting topic. So we've talked about compassion, but we've never really zoomed in on that as the topic. How many of us need? So I know that many of you need it because I heard you saying, I need compassion for myself. So what I'd like to ask tonight is, what do you need compassion for yourself for? Or to be more grammatical, for what do you need compassion for yourself? Right. But anyway, and then I'm going to try to help. But in the meantime, I'm going to start out by talking about the topic. Shauna said, happy Friday. Good to see you both.
Happy Friday to you.
Good to see you too, Shauna.
TGIF.
I'm going to be talking, but not around here because we work on weekends and there is no Friday in my life. So tonight, Sean, I'm going to be talking about how many of us need more compassion for ourselves, and I'm going to try to help. And that's the topic that I heard from the audience telepathically. I figure I'm intuitive. I might as well use it. Okay. So first I want to start out by saying that we have a pretty dismal state of the world in some ways, don't we? I mean, there are marvelous things that happen. Medical science is always discovering something, and technology just keeps discovering something. And I'm not going to kid you. I would much rather have air conditioning than not have air conditioning, wouldn't you?
I'm with you.
Oh, yeah. And I'd rather have a car than have to walk 30 miles. Clean bus that would lift up the disabled, that would be okay if it came straight to my house and then went to where I was going. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that we take for granted. So many of us actually have relatively clean water, at least compared to, some other humans on the planet. But on the other hand, there's a lot of anger and misery, suicide, violence in our society. I mean, we see it in politics, obviously, but we're also seeing it, every day you pick up what used to be a newspaper, which is now the internet, and you read about somebody who beat their child to death, or some child who clubbed their parent, or whatever it is. So we're not a happy world. And in fact, there was a study recently that showed that Americans are really not happy, not one of the happy people. Even though we have more money than many people, we don't have the social network and the love that most of us actually need to be happy. So now, the point though is that while the world is kind of crummy in a lot of ways, we have to face that. We have to face what are the elements, what are the emotional elements that are making people so mean, so competitive, all of that stuff. And I do know one thing, that when we have qualities that we don't like and we don't have compassion for ourselves, we either go into horrible shame, implode, fall under the floor, or what's maybe even worse is we go into denial and pretend that it isn't true. Me, I'm not a racist. Just because I voted for the Ku Klux Klan in every election since 1922 is not an indicator whatsoever that I'm prejudiced against black people. I just happen to like the candidates. Anyway, so there's a lot of denial, and that's because we don't want to admit that we are racist, because being a racist is a bad thing, or being taking advantage of women is a bad thing, see? So then we go into denial. So I'm saying, let's try a little tenderness, right? We are going to talk about compassion, having compassion instead of denial and shame. So let's talk about, some of the funny things that, we're brought up with, or they're not so funny. Okay. You have unclean thoughts. Unclean. Unclean, that means they haven't been to the laundromat. You have unclean thoughts. Now, what the hell is an unclean thought? Anyway, well, it usually means you have sexual thoughts. Ooh! So now, what's wrong with that? So the first thing is we're looking at, there are standards that we judge ourselves by, where the standards are crazy. Everybody has sexual feelings unless they've been traumatized out of them, especially when they're young, but even some old goats continue. And there's a big difference between somebody who has an unclean thought and who has had sexual needs, and somebody who knocks somebody else down behind the schoolyard, right? So having the thought of the desire to have sex, sometimes we get fixated on the person, so it looks like it's about them, but usually we're horny, and we're looking at for somebody to attach to. And so whether we're having unclean thoughts, we want to masturbate, or whatever it is, so many of our spiritual teachings and our families will tell us that that's bad. Well, I say, if we are being compassionate with ourselves, we look at that and say, no, what's bad is the standard, and that we aren't really taught how to deal with these feelings. We're just left with the feeling of shame that we even had them, right? So there's an example. Now, you have been raised in a religion that tells you that having sexual feelings is bad. Well, tough. It's not true. I mean, it's natural. If everybody on the planet has them, maybe it's time to recognize that that's natural. I mean, I've talked about this before, especially in terms of people who go into religious orders who are supposed to not have any sexual feelings anymore, right? Or even if you, God forbid, sweet baby James, are in a relationship and you're having an unclean thought about somebody else, maybe you have roaming thoughts, well, maybe you have issues with commitment. Then you have to have compassion for yourself and say, gee, I wonder why I'm having these commitment issues. Or maybe you're miserable in your relationship and you really don't want to be with that person anymore. You're really looking for somebody to make you feel better about yourself. So, this doesn't mean that you should go around irresponsibly irradiating every woman with your semen, or vice versa, women with women or men or whatever. But what I'm saying is, if you are having that desire to roam, don't beat yourself up. Ask yourself why. Bring it to the surface. Now, supposing your issue is that you're jealous. Ooh. Now, how do you feel about that? Well, jealousy is one nasty bugger, and it's very damaging to everybody, especially you, because it makes you all tied up in knots inside. But why don't you have some compassion for yourself instead of pretending you're not jealous? Oh, no, I love her. I just love her. Or him, or them, or whatever. You could be jealous of somebody's gifts. You could be jealous of what they've got. If I lived, under a bridge and I was looking at somebody walking around with a Mercedes, and, I might be jealous too, or envious really in that case. But let's say you are jealous. So instead of pretending you're not, or killing yourself for being it, if you have a judgment about it, why don't you say, well, I wonder why I'm that way. Was I raised in a family that really encouraged that? Was I the ugly sister, or the klutzy brother, or whatever it is, that I see other people in the family getting more attention, more love, more kudos or something? So did that make me jealous? Was that something that was bred into me by that experience, right? Am I in a society that encourages that? So see, having compassion means you're going to bring that to the surface. I hope somebody out there is gaining something from this. Okay, now supposing you say you're mean. You're just plain mean, and you're noticing that you're mean. You're mean to your kids. You're mean to dogs. You're mean in politics. I mean, oh my God, mean is the mean today, like, the average, right? Well, we tend to get mean when we're in pain, don't we? I do. I mean, no matter how saintly I really am, you know how saintly I really am, but when I am in emotional pain, hello, Dennis from La Mesa. Dennis, do watch the beginning of the show because we're almost at the end, and I would love you to hear the rest of it, but I'm so glad that you showed up. So we're talking about having compassion for ourselves. And so we're talking about even something like if you're mean. Well, so if you ask yourself, why am I mean? What kind of pain am I in that's making me mean? The mean dog is the one, when you put the picadors, right?
Yeah.
When
yeah,
they stick, Dennis says, thanks. When you stick those picks into the bowl, you're doing it to make it mean, so that it'll attack you for the show, so that the rest of the bloodthirsty spectators can have a good time. Amy said, it's a great way to be compassionate for myself when I have the freedom to ask why instead of feeling shame. This is a real relief. Thanks, Granny. Oh, Helen and Todd are here at the Eugene Airport. Okay, so 2 of our regulars have joined us. Oh, that's really wonderful. So we're talking about how we need more compassion for ourselves, and I'm trying to help everybody. So I've been going through a list of ways, of qualities that we have that we judge, that we feel bad about, and that we either try to hide, or we go into denial about it, or we pretend that we don't have it, or we go into shame or whatever. So yeah, if we're mean, we're probably in some kind of pain, and it would be great to have some compassion for ourselves. Now, supposing we're prejudiced against minorities, prejudiced against majorities. I mean, it's not only minorities who, that you can have prejudice against. Now, maybe the majority has more power over the minority than the minority has over the majority, unless the minority grabs the power, which sometimes happens in some nations, like this sect grabs the power from that sect. But anyway, let's say you're prejudiced. Do you want to admit it? I gave that example before. Oh no, I'm not racist just because I voted for the Ku Klux Klan every year in every election since 1922. Shauna says, I think we tend to beat ourselves up for natural feelings. Exactly. Embrace yourself and your natural qualities. But these are not all, they're all natural under the circumstances. Your prejudice, if you have it, comes from something. Terry, oh, hello. Hi, happy weekend. Hi, Terry.
Terry.
So glad to see you again. You know, you missed most of our show, but I hope that you catch up and watch it afterwards. So why are you prejudiced? You know, were you raised feeling like you're better than other people? Are you secretly insecure? Debbie says hi to you both. Such a great topic. I could listen to you for hours. Love your live post. Thank you, Debbie. I hope you get to listen to us after the show because you're always at the end. I love that though, and I'm so glad that you came. When I say that, I'm just encouraging you to watch the show. I'm not being critical that anybody came late. I'd rather better late than never, right? Absolutely. And live. I love
And
that.
I certainly wouldn't want to be the late James Maynard.
No, definitely not. So anyway, okay, so my mother was prejudiced against non-Jews. Well, I understand why. You know, she went through World War II. We lost our family. She grew up with all kinds of prejudice against Jews. I actually had quite a bit of that myself. But, but I don't want to be prejudiced against people who aren't Jewish because I want to be open to relate to others. And if you are white and you are feeling prejudiced towards, hello, Karen. Hi, you two. I'll catch up later too. Oh, my goodness, it makes me feel so great that you guys have joined us. Yes. Anyway, so there is some reason that you're prejudiced. Just admit it already. Yes, I do. I hate that dirty black scumbag because, there was a black kid at school who used to beat me up or who used to beat me at prejudicial tendencies are learned. Yes, Shauna, but they're not only learned by people telling you. See, what I'm getting to now, which I know there's a delay, is that we can also have prejudice against people of certain types because we had an experience with them. Maybe they beat us up, but maybe they were just better than we were. Oh, so-and-so was better in basketball, or so-and-so was better in science, or whatever it is. And because we felt shame about ourselves, then we start to have to hate them because we can't stand the shame that we're feeling about ourselves, right? And so we have to have compassion for ourselves when we're prejudiced. Let us look at the real source of our prejudice. If, let's say, we're defensive, well, why are we defensive? Were we punished when we were deemed bad? Were we punished either physically or just like the look, or were we ostracized or something else when we behaved, quote, badly? So naturally, we're going to be very defensive because we're afraid of the consequences of being who we are. And just one more example is violence. Are we violent? Can we have compassion for ourselves for being violent? Well, how many of us aren't violent? If we're not violent physically, we might be violent emotionally. And why is that? It's because we feel weak or we feel insecure or we feel like we're being overpowered and so on. So basically, I have gone through a whole lot of scenarios tonight about compassion. Compassion is understanding. It's like, I get it. There is, in my book, Living with Reality, which, by the way, is a free download at www.bethgreen.org. At the bottom of the homepage, you can see a button. You can get that book for free. And there's another book that I have. It's not in physical form, but it's physical. It's like an ebook, so that makes it physical, but it's not a paper. I can't afford to give those out. That's because nobody has, come up with $1 million for me yet. But hey, I'm still expecting it any day now. So anyway, compassion is about being understanding, and then living with reality. I talk about no wonder. When you really understand yourself, then you can admit those qualities of yours that you're embarrassed about. And I ran through some that I know people share about having unclean thoughts, especially when you're young, or you have a desire to roam, and that's because the standards are unrealistic. As Shauna was talking about, they're unnatural. Jealousy could have been caused by our experience. It's natural, it's normal, let's say, to have jealous feelings when we've been raised in a way that promotes jealousy. I've talked about being mean when we're in pain, talked about being prejudiced when we've either been taught to be prejudiced or when we've been in situations where we got angry at somebody and we just like put it on the whole group, right? Or let's say I'm prejudiced against sorority sisters because nobody ever invited me, right? And how we can be defensive and how we can be violent. But if we're willing to look at ourselves honestly and say, what are the qualities of mind that I really, really wish I didn't have? And how did I get them? And no wonder, then maybe we can get a handle on them and start changing them. Because when we have compassion, we can relax and ask for help. Get counseling, ask a friend, talk to the person that you're having the negative feelings towards. Get counseling from me. Ask God to help you. Read self-help. I don't care what you do. Get going. Get going, because we don't need to pretend that it's okay. Raping, mutilating, hating, being jealous, competing, those damage the people around us. Condemning, judging, spindling. They damage the people around us, but they damage us too because they make us toxic and sick on the inside. And if we want to get past all that, we have to start with admitting these qualities, having compassion for ourselves, and start looking for their roots. And that's all I'm going to say for today. But except just to do a little wrap up, I really appreciate you guys coming, and I so appreciate you guys who came in late and who said hello and made us feel much more loved and not so alone. And I love that. And we're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time with Grow. And Thursday evenings, we're doing Dreams of Peace, improvisational piano music. And it worked last night, where it's on Facebook, and we even have it on our YouTube channel, Granny Rocks TV. So check it all out. And Amy said, have a great workshop. She's talking about the retreat we're having this weekend. We are going to have a great time because we are not going to be condemning ourselves. We're going to be too busy having compassion, aren't we? Yeah. So don't forget to tune into that soothing piano music every Thursday, and you can always listen later. So thank you again. I love our audience. I love you. I love you. I really do. I'm not just saying it. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.